And we are back. Don't know what episode it is, as usual. And we are the duo today, without our faithful trio. Kunal is MIA, missing in action. He's got a sore throat, bless him. And it's just me and M here today. Today we're going to discuss the element of finding equilibrium balance within that lifestyle when you're trying to maintain. So, let's kick this off. How do you maintain your balance?
Well, I had I posted something yesterday, and a guy who I'm friends with on Instagram, he came back to me and he said, well, how long could you maintain that physique for in reality? Because I posted a picture of one of my old photo shoots. And, I actually answered him, I kind of maintained that physique for 3 years. Um, of course, there is a grayscale. I wasn't at my peak condition, but then I showed him a picture of me last summer when I was on the beach and I actually still had my abs. I looked really good, and that was 3 years post that photo shoot. And that just goes to show that you can maintain a physique pretty well. There is, of course, as we've talked about, I think in the previous podcast, that semi grayscale of like you can gain a little bit, but you might bounce up and down like this, and that's natural. And then what I learned from, because as I said, like I've derailed from that now because COVID Christmas fucked me up. Uh, and I think parts of what we talk about today is why did it fuck me up? And obviously there are many variables to, and it sounds worse than what it is, but there are many variables to why it didn't work out well for me over Christmas and then post Christmas, partly because my priorities completely shifted and I got really busy with work, but at the time when I got caught in London during lockdown, I had no scale. There was no gym. So I didn't have anything to give me indications that I was heading in the wrong direction, other than maybe I was a bit more lethargic, but what it could have been weird working hours or the lack of movement that would have done it for me as well. So I found it really interesting that because I didn't have the feedback that I usually get from stepping on the scale each morning, it was so easy to derail from my somewhat, I would say, normal physique, which is leaner than I am now. Um, so yeah, I just thought that was an interesting intro to it. I coming into it, like I actually did maintain my physique well for 3 years, and now I'm just a little bit heavier.
Yeah, and that's okay. And I think it's all relative to the balance that you have to have between the way that you look, the way that you want to act, and then your mindset as well. I think there's often like the trio of three things that you'll need to consider when it comes to finding the right balance for you in a lifestyle. Like swing too far on one end of the pendulum, and you end up like shredded all year round, eating chicken Caesar salads 4 times a day because that's all you can eat, and lower calories and no social events, and probably in a really hyper focused phase of focused on food. Then on the other end of the spectrum, if you go too far, lads on tour in the social side of things, or just general laxity around accuracy, you end up like losing the physique side of things, or the way that you look, and then obviously some mindset as well, because you end up being like more lax, lethargic, the low mood, low confidence, low energy. So you're finding the equilibrium between those three things. I think for me, I think I would definitely recommend, and definitely seen it within myself. If I stay within like a weight range of around about 2 to 4 kilos around where I want to stay. So like let's say for example, last time I did this, let's actually use my body weight now. Like for me now, I'm 75. I'm heavier than normal just because I'm in a building phase. But if I was to go back down to 70 right now, I'd be happy there and fluctuating between like 68 and 72. That would be a nice little range for me. I don't feel overly taxed. I don't feel overly heavy. I don't feel overly, in a place where my blood pressure is high or anything like that. So I feel like I'd be in a good spot there. So once you find that like balanced place, then your nutrition, social events, strategies will all represent that type of range. Because you're gonna have to, if you come from 100 kilos down to 60, you're gonna have to act like a 60 to 65 kilo dude anyway. So it's always going to be quite an adjustment phase. I think from the balance side of things, I think often you just have to look at what type of social entity you are. If you're a social person, then you have to take into consideration that these are going to be your major points of high calorie intake. And then if you're not a social person, but you're at home and you like recipes or you like baking, or these are going to also be periods, or you like cooking for your family, but you also want to be included, then you have to take these as your like high calorie points. And I think for most people, there'll be 2 or 3 high calorie points throughout the week for most in a lifestyle phase. Generally Friday, Saturday, Sunday. For others, that's a Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. That could be, whatever for anybody else. So I think understanding where you sit on that spectrum and what is it that you want, what type of lifestyle do you want, and that will also reflect what you can get.
I agree. And also, obviously, now assuming that someone has gone through a fat loss phase and then coming out of it, and trying to find that balance and equilibrium, hopefully they would have learned something about structure as the journey went on, in terms of how to actually think about food a little bit, like what is a good balanced meal, when is a good time to eat my higher calorie meals, when can I have more carbs, if anywhere. I mean, I think at the end of the day, when you come out of the diet phase, yes, you need to have that mindset of like, actually I'm eating this structure because it's how it makes me operate and perform at my best. But to also not stress so much about, oh, it wasn't a training day today, so I can't have that meal, because then it's keeping you back in that mindset of I can't. Whereas actually you can. You just need to have that empowered choice, and then knowing that we have that balance as we talked about, and then understanding that having some level of feedback going in and out, like as in my case, I like to jump on the scale, not that I have an emotional connection to it, but it just indicates that things are moving, and that's it. Then I think it's okay to have whatever a meal midweek that wasn't planned because it just happened randomly, and then you can go, okay, cool. But as we talked about, I think last time, if you've overeaten a little bit over a period of time as well, you naturally are going to feel more full. So if you can then tune into those signals, like actually I'm not very hungry, I can actually eat a bit less food, maybe I'll skip this breakfast because I genuinely ate a lot yesterday, then it becomes more intuitive in that way. But intuition without it being I'm relying on my feelings to tell me what to do. I've learned enough about structure, about balancing meals, about having enough protein, about portion control, looking at vegetables. I've learned enough about that intuitively I do that without thinking. It's subconscious. So yeah.
No, I agree. I think as you mentioned there, you do these things subconsciously, but for most people that are not in that realm that they're going to be able to do that, they almost need to, it's called, like, they're just setting new rules for yourself in these scenarios. Like Em said, it like, it's not an I can't, it's a, well, what's your rule for the week? Like, is your rules that when you go out for dinner, you choose a protein, carbs and veggie option on the menu? Is it that when you go out for dinner, to stop yourself from going overboard like you probably used to, you say, when I go out for dinner that isn't special, I want one main dish? What rules have you really set yourself up for that are going to allow you to have this balance? Because ultimately the balance is it's a forever chasing scale of fuckery. You're going to go one side or the other and then go down the other side, and you're going to try and chase it. And the chase is actually what you're trying to do. You're trying to chase this balance so that you end up being somewhere in the middle. And you're going to need to have a reason or a rule to ensure that the choice that marketers and restaurants and your emotional subset, they're all trying to fight for the attention for you to act in a certain way. But then we all know that if you were always going to act on emotional impulses, you'd either be in jail or you'd be like massively overweight, because you'd just be eating the most tastiest, quickest food that you could get a hold of. But sometimes that longer term gratification is the right option. So we need rules in place so that you don't go to a restaurant or you don't go to Friday night and it becomes, oh, what am I feeling like having? Like, sometimes that's fine, but most of the time, if you're feeling insecure and you're uncertain and anxious, that's not going to be the salad, or they're going to be the right option per what you want. So I'm not saying that you can't go and say that, I fancy something off the menu. That's fine. But if you struggle with making the right balanced choice, then you definitely need these rules to start with before they become um, synonymous with your day. And I think that like an example of this is like just stayed with Sandy and Adam. Adams, who obviously we know him from back in the day, and then Sandy's his girlfriend, and like you just observe those two, and you observe how they eat out every single night. They eat at, like, restaurants every night because it's cheaper to eat out at restaurants in Dubai than it is to eat like normal healthy food, right? So they go to these restaurants, and it's like, well, how can she stay in shape, and how does he stay the way he is? And you just watch what they do, and you see that they don't treat every meal out like it's their last. They actually, from Monday to Friday, they choose the same sauces off the menu, but from different places. So they'll get a chicken sheesh, or he'll get a chicken sheesh with rice, or with bread and hummus, or she'll get a chicken Caesar salad, or she'll get like the fattoush salad with extra chicken or fish on the side, because they've learned, and after speaking to them, they've learned that. And same with when we went traveling and stuff like that, is that there's always that exciting thing on the menu that you could always get. There's always a reason to party on a Monday. There's always a reason to have a drink on a Tuesday, but there's more reasons not to once you go through that and have it every day. Like your exotic choices that you have every day turn into like the reasons why you got a downfall. You almost need to like set that subset of like, it's Monday to Friday, chill out. Like Monday to Friday is a work day. We don't need to go lads on tour on a Tuesday night just because we're going to a burger place. So I think a large part of that is the rule formation, and you observe other people who are managing to manage going to a restaurant every single night. They subconsciously have formed rules in their brain that they don't even think are rules, but they are rules. They're things that they're acting upon based on what they feel is right. It's very interesting.
I agree. I agree, and obviously that takes time and and consciousness and awareness, and then actually wanting to create this without feeling like it's something that is supposed to restrict you from making the choices. But it's kind of like, what is important to me right now? What's important? Health, staying in shape. Right. In order for me to have that, which is important to me, I need to be able to create those set of rules, as you say, that actually is going to allow me to facilitate those two things. And that again it doesn't mean that it's boring, and I think if we can just look at so quote unquote healthy foods and go, actually, that doesn't mean boring. That means everything. That means I get to eat the cake and also get shredded if I wanted to, or eat the fish, whatever it is, but also knowing that it tastes fantastic, and you probably won't have any gut distress afterwards. You probably won't feel sluggish and heavy and food coma, because now you made a choice of food that actually didn't overtax your system because it wasn't so heavy, and B, it's actually proactively giving you what you actually want, which is probably health and staying in shape.
Yeah, no, couldn't more. I think when we take it back to like the traveling analogy, it's almost when we were traveling.
That place, the Bali place, when we went to have the fish, right?
Yeah.
And that menu had 15,000 things on that menu. I think it was so hard to pick, but in the end, you picked something that was on surface level looking like something super bland, but it was like the most delicious thing I've ever eaten. I think we had to go back like 2 more days or something, and I think I had the same thing. Yeah,
that was so good. Yeah. But it's one of those where you'll try and do it by, so you after your dieting phase, you go into a maintenance phase, and you'll always want to go test the boundaries. Everyone as individuals, as human behavior, like to test the boundaries of where they can capable of and where they can go to, and what the tipping point is. And once you find that tipping point, unfortunately it's a bit too late, because you would have gained all the body fat that you probably worked hard to get off. And so when you go and find this balance, you will, I mean, to be honest, the framework is there for most people. Like, it's 1 to 2 meals a week, and the rest of the time is per se going to be relatively protein driven, not outrageous sources, and your normal bang for your buck. Like, it's very, very rare do people actually eat different foods every single day. It's actually more rare. So on, like, they'll show you on Instagram that there's different foods every single day, but that's the perception of different foods every day. That's just a post. But it's actually that person has probably made one of those bowls one a day for content rather than actually eating that bowl every day. you will and actually the traits of people that stay in shape are and it's really clear in the research, is those that do not have high levels of food variety, like we're talking like high food choices, are the ones that don't stay in shape. Actually, like it's one of the commonalities between people that like 10,000 steps, low food choices, high volume foods, and meal timings and routines. They're like the kind of factors that will help you stay in shape long term, because no one's got the willpower or the energy levels to make a new dinner breakfast every single day and really put it into the calories and do all of that type of stuff. If you got two kids and you've got a full-time job that you don't actually give a shit about fitness too much, you just need 1 to 3 different options where, okay, a yogurt option, an oat option, and maybe some eggs. Like, okay, what can I have? Like, can I have eggs on toast today? Okay, that's normally my weekend thing. During the week, it's like oats and whey, or yogurt and berries, or it's cereal and whey. Like, they're really just simple sources that you can just go and have, but it takes all the thought process out of it, which is the hard part. I think that's where people go wrong.
Yeah, I agree. So what about other habitual things that, because the thing is as well, and it's all well and good, you work with a coach, you have someone kind of giving you the guidelines, giving you the structures, and then people walk away, right?
Yeah.
What do you think is like the thing that people need to take with them if they leave their coach and they got into good shape, and they just want to so-called take it over, like take over the stick and run it by themselves? Like what are the things that they should probably think about then, other than keeping the structure of the meals that we just talked about?
I think making sure that you're clear of dictonomy with food, dictonomous thinking with food. So, if you're in a position where you think that food is bad and that food is good, then you're probably not in the position to be able to uh, stay in shape long term. Just because it's more about everything actually has its place, and there's a choice element, deciphering element, where you have a decision to know if you can fit that food in or not, rather than it being good or bad. And normally the bad stuff will end up being on something that you really, really want to have, and then when you have it, you hit the fuck it button, or you just overindulge in it because you think it's bad. Whereas you could just have any food and take food off a pedestal completely. I think that is a massive one, and probably the one that I've got is um, not having any type of check-in method, as you kind of alluded to before. Is if you don't have any way that you're hiding from the scales, or hiding from weekly check-in and journal reviews from yourself, or hiding from, or just not having anything in place where you just don't do it because you don't want to get the answer. That's what the scale does easy. It gut checks you very, very quickly into knowing whether you acted the way that you wanted to, potentially.
Yeah. What is your relationship to the scale, and has it changed over the years?
um I don't really have a negative one with it. Like, if it goes up or goes down, like, I normally will know why. Like, I think for the most part, if you're super consistent with meal timings, sleep's okay, digestion's, where your digestion is, you can almost say like why it will be up or why it will be down. So I think for me, I'm in that point where I, when I diet, I try and get as low as possible so that I don't really care. And then when I'm building, I'm just like, as long as it's hovering over the average, then I'm fine.
Mm.
So what about you?
Well, I think it's interesting, obviously, because there is a difference between a man and a woman when it comes to scale readings, right? Because for a woman, it's way more dramatic and just fucking, if I'm going to be honest. So I think personally, obviously, I think I would speak for every woman in this world that would have had at some point in their life at least a negative relationship to the scale, because we think that it reflects what we do sometimes, and it really doesn't. As a woman, it does to a certain extent, but we have to realize that on a day-to-day basis it doesn't, especially then for a woman. Maybe for a man a bit more so. Obviously we do know that stress, water, salt, like all of these things will trigger a spike or a drop in water weight, or in weight. But again, as a woman, it is that thing that if you have a cycle, it's inevitable. It's just going to fuck with your head, and you can do everything right. You can be very, very consistent, and it's still going to show that, whoa, I put on a kilo overnight. And it it is what it is. And I think that's the thing. If we can just detach ourselves from the reading and still go, I can look at it, I can, but it again goes to show, I think the people who are really frustrated with their weights all the time, they either don't take responsibility for what they do, and they really don't like it because it gets into their face. And that goes probably for men and women. But I think for women, it's kind of highlighting how detached they are from their body in a way. You know, if you're in tune with your body and you can, and if you know, hey, I'm ovulating now, or hey, I'm about to get my period, this totally makes sense. So I do not need to stress about it. I can still just look at the number and go like, cool, that was 1 kilo up. And then you can ask yourself, did I do everything right yesterday? Yeah, I did. Or maybe I didn't. Okay, cool. So if we can learn to detach ourselves from what we're reading, but still see it as valuable tools, like it is just a number, but the number over time will indicate where you're going towards. It doesn't necessarily tell you how good you were or how bad you were, but over time it will give you that kind of realistic, you know, you see the scale going down slowly, or you see the scale going up slowly. And again, just going back to my example in the beginning about COVID and not having a scale, not having gyms, because I don't necessarily look at myself in the mirror when I wake up and I check myself out. So, but the gym as well, like there's always mirrors. So in a way, you always have something to reference from, you know, and clearly that was the thing that helped me for 3 years to stay in shape, that I always had feedback. And then of course I was more mindful, and I was more active. There's a lot of factors to it, but again, like the scale, I think it's a very powerful tool if we can just detach ourselves from the reading and just go, yeah, I need it because I need feedback. Because what are we doing if we are not having feedback? How are we going to know what's going on, like honestly? So obviously there's so many ways to get feedback, but the scale is such an easy thing because you do it really quickly in the morning. If you had to go and put a tripod up and take photos, or if you need to go and take tape measures, it's a little bit more time consuming than just to wake up busy in the morning, brush my teeth, pee, jump on the scale, take it and just note it down, you know. So yeah, I'm totally pro. And I think it's kind of funny. I don't know if you can change it and go like, that's fascinating. Wow, a whole kilo, you know? I barely ate yesterday. And yet, like, if you can get curious about it and go like, that's kind of funny. And I have my best friend, Emily. And we send screenshots to each other whenever we have like huge reading, and like, it's like, yep, doing well. Because I just think it's funny, you know? And then it is what it is. But yeah, I do think that people shouldn't be scared of the scale. And I really think if you have a negative relationship to the scale, it's going to still be just a reflection on how you feel about yourself. So if you can solve I'm fucking awesome, and the scale doesn't tell me if I am, then the scale is like anything. If you were to offend me, like, whoa, what do you wear today, Emily? I'd be like, well, I'm fucking awesome, so you can say whatever you want. You know, it wouldn't offend me, right? But if I'm already insecure and then you tell me what the fuck is that, I'll be like, oh, what is this? You know, so I do think that whenever we have problems with anything, it's usually just a reflection of what's going on the inside. So yeah.
I'm all for scale weight stuff. I feel like the biggest thing for most, and definitely for online coaches or any type of personal trainer, is as soon as that resistance comes up, they throw the scale weight out. But actually, the opposite needs to happen for people to get away from the. If you're having a reaction to the scale weight, you need it in more, not less, because you need to normalize it. It needs to go away from being a pedestal, and the only way you get it off a pedestal is by doing it every day and overcoming it, so it becomes less of a mountain every time it jars up. And so a lot of people will just take scale weight away and be like, oh no, don't worry about it. But then at some point, they're going to put it back in, and they're going to feel exactly the same as they did before. So being able to detach comes through practice, and it comes through repetition daily of doing it, because then it becomes no emotional signal because you're doing it daily and there's no emotional signal.
Yeah. And it's kind of the same as, it's also that thing when people skip jumping on the scale when they know they've been bad, and then they'd be like, only when I'm good I'm going to jump on the scale. And it's still, that's not going to solve your relationship to even if it's 5 days a week that you're good and 2 days you're not, like Yeah, but it doesn't solve the problem of your relationship to the scale. And also, just scientifically, if we have more readings, we have a better average. We can actually look at the average rather than just going off those best readings or just one reading a week, which then is going to give us a way more quote unquote accurate data point to look at each week, right? So, yeah, yeah.
Oh, it makes total sense. What else do you like to use for maintenance?
Mm, I think when I shift gears a little bit when I focus more on like how can I sleep even better. Like I actually try to see like how can I optimize um, qualities in my day that makes me a better performer. So like sleep is very important. I try to just focus on like I wake up and actually will be more in tune with, do I feel good today? Do I feel ready to work? And if I start to feel that I'm not, I be like, all right, what am I actually doing? And I know that during that Christmas period, I slept like shit because I was overtaxing my body with sugar, mostly chocolates, and yeah. But what else do I do for maintenance? I mean, walking. It's that thing. It's a non-negotiable. And there was a time not too long ago when it started to slip a little bit, and even though I was maybe like hitting 8,000-9,000 steps, because it's so ingrained in me, like 10,000 is my gold standard, 10,000 or more, then I need to, like, if I have these level of standards now, that if I don't follow them, also because I like to think that if I tell my clients to do 10,000, I should fucking do 10,000 myself. So it was kind of this thing that I'm not practicing what I'm preaching. That makes me not a good coach. So it kind of, I need to raise my standards and get back on it and make time for it, prioritize it. And it's that thing, we're all really busy, but we all can make that time. It's just a matter of planning a little bit more, or making that effort. And now, obviously, I like last time I dieted, I didn't actually track my food properly. I had tracked a few days, but I didn't track my food properly. But I still got, I went from lean to being photo shoot ready, without actually tracking food. But I've done this in the past, so I don't recommend anyone here who's never dieted to not track your food and learn the process of creating macros and understanding macros and all of that. But it goes to show that if you do this properly, if you actually go through a diet phase properly, you learn so many things that just it can become more intuitive later on, as if we can call it intuitive, and then just increase my activity. That's it. So now I know I still have a huge appetite. Like I love eating loads, um, and I don't track my food. I still have structure. I still always think protein, always. I don't know my calories, but I look at my weight, I look at my progress, and then I'll go like, cool, I need to do something. For me, I always increase activities before I drop the food because I just have a high appetite all year round. Just can't get away from it. What do you do?
No, I'll go on that one to go. But yeah, that's the steps one is massive. Like, obviously for me, steps was huge before like my knee became a massive issue. Like, I was no stranger to 15, 20K days most days, and that felt really, really good to me. But having now dropped, well, down to the walk to the gym and back, and that's it. Which it depends on where I am, but 6,000 maybe, and that's at tops. And I have to really limit myself. I'm like, I really have to going through an identity crisis of what to do outside of doing steps. But generally, like when you look at those two variables, like you can get away with so much food. Like, um, I'm eating 2,500 at the moment. That's maintaining my weight at 75 kilos. Um, if I was doing 20K, 15K steps, I'd be eating 3,000 a day. And like, it depends on how much you want to eat, right? That's the kind of the question is how much do you want to eat and how much do you want to move? If they correlate together and you do lots of movement, you get to eat loads. If you don't want to move loads, then you don't get to eat loads. So there's that variable, which is it's always a really good one to monitor.
Mm.
But I think the only thing outside of what we spoke about there is just finding the longer term strategy to your food overall. So, is that going to be my tracking for the rest of your life? Like,
and to put it here, like there's two camps for the most part with anything, right? There's the I will track forever camp, or there's the tracking is obsessive and you don't need to do it, and I'm not going to do it. Okay, cool. So obviously during the dieting phase, you need to be more accurate because you're trying to lose weight and you've got calories to hit. But when you're maintaining, that doesn't mean what got you down there can keep has to keep you down there. Like you can go away from tracking and like you have get to a point where you are able to just have nice foods or normal foods and kind of get in shape. That's fine and stay in shape. But you need those rules in place. So for the most part, is designing something that is for the long term. Like for me, when I'm not doing food prep from Dubai, like when I was back in the UK, I was having 500, 600 calories not tracked. I was weighing my cereal out because I'm a soldier for cereal, right? So like you just end up having 140 grams of fucking crunchy nut instead of 100, and then there's 300, 500 extra calories. But then I'd have a protein source for lunch with a carb source, so like a pack of microwavable rice, or maybe 350 grams of potato or 500 grams, or 4 slices of bread and some veggies, and the same for the evening meal, and then a snack before bed. And that would get me my 2,500-ish calories, depending on what sources I had. And I'd run that every single day, and I maintained arguably better, and the same-ish, because there's less headspace in that, because you don't have to think about it, than what I'm doing right now. Or managing the weekends is difficult here because you've had prep food all week, and now you're like, okay, I want to go out for dinner on Friday and Saturday, and that becomes a little bit of a difference because you've had like rigid meals all the way through the week. But then when I was at home, I was having the choice of the flexible stuff without tracking. So it's almost like find the strategy that works for you longer term. If you don't know it, go and try the opposite of what you're doing right now, potentially opposite, find that perspective and that spectrum. Like if you've tracked everything within an inch of its life, but then you want to go and have family meals, like your family are not going to do what you do. That's a social norm. Now, if they do, then that's great, but like, most of the people won't. Like if you want to have family, like there's probably 3 camps of what I help people do when we work with autonomy. Is like what after this is like family meals in the evening, non-negotiable from Monday to Friday. The rest of the day is managed around that evening meal. Whatever they're having, they'll just get a portion size. You get the people that live for the weekend. So Monday to Friday is like normal rigid food, not rigid, but like basic foods. And then weekends is more sporadic. And then you've got the other people, which is the third group of people, which is I want to make training really, really important to me. And I want to make my performance really important because I value that. And then that's where more food on training days or a little bit extra food in different specific points. When you find which group you're in of one of those 3, then the answer will be within that. And then once you can find that, then you'll find a long-term solution because your kids are going to go nowhere. The evening meals are going to go nowhere. The weekend strategies are always going to be the same. They're all just going to be dependent on your mood and dependent on what you fancy is what you choose. And then probably the last thing, which is different to this, is accept periods of fat gain. Accept it in essence of keep yourself a range. And when you get a bit too chunky and funky, pull it back. But your goal every single time you do that process. So I give the 4 kilo range. I like 4 kilos because you can't fuck it up in a week, and you have to be consistently bad for at least 4 weeks to say I fucked up, right? You're not going to gain a kilo a week without having significant calorie increase on top of what you're already eating. If you get to the point where you've gained 4 kilos, then your goal is to get it back off with the same diet that you used before, and then spend longer gaining these 4 kilos. And then if you spend 8 weeks gaining those 4 kilos, you got 2 times better than you were last time. And then you do that again, and then you have a little, okay, what did I fuck up on? Okay, I need to start doing this at weekends or start doing that during the week. And then it takes you 6 months to gain 4 kilos. Then you've just 3x'd your skill on maintenance. And you do that again and again and again to the point of where you won't hit that upper limit because you'll make the adjustments quicker instead of the week after where you're like, oh, fuck, I shouldn't have done that the weekend. And you've already made the adjustment to actually like, oh, that doesn't suit me because I'm going to do this if that does that. And you start making those rules because you're like, if I do this, or if I have too many sides with my main, I end up gaining that kilo that then results in me dieting in 3 weeks' time, which I don't want. So therefore, I'm not going to order those 3 sides. I'm going to just have the one. And then you start making those better choices because of that. That's what I would recommend most people do if it was just a bastardized version.
Yeah. I agree. And obviously, if you guys didn't listen to the previous podcast, we talked about reverse dieting then, and we did that time ago as well. I remember in one of our earlier episodes as well. So there's definitely loads to listen to if you find this interesting. Yeah. Anything else to break this up with?
No, it's all done. We're all done and dusted. I think that was good.
Yeah. So you guys will hear more from us as usual per next week. Until then, we love a feedback, questions, reviews, shares. Share the love. We're here to give you love. And yeah, appreciate that you listened in. Have a really good day.